Hey everyone, welcome to the first episode of I Rise with Sal, a platform where I'll be speaking to women entrepreneurs and innovators who have broken the mold and pursued different career paths. Today on my show, I have Pearl Agarwal with me. Pearl is someone whom I met about a decade ago when she started her career in investment banking and private equity in the US. She has over a decade's work experience in private equity, investment banking, raising capital, and in mergers and acquisitions. Last year, in fact, she moved to Delhi. She made a very bold decision to start her own micro VC fund called Eximius Venture Capital. And she's been doing a phenomenal job there, where she's invested in over 10 startups. And she's also currently in the process of starting her own company on the side. She's really taking the world by storm. And this company called DotReview is a platform that aims to have a trusted and authentic reviews of investors and really helping entrepreneurs know their investors inside out. So without further ado, I want to welcome Pearl.
Well, thank you, Sal. Thanks for having me here. And thanks for the warm welcome as well. I'm glad that we are doing this. I know we connected a while ago about it and how passionate about you are about connecting with various women entrepreneurs. So I'm glad that we're getting to speak today.
Awesome. Me too. So I wanted to start off by asking you, how did you start your journey and pivot through all your different work experiences to where you are today? Because a lot of graduates and a lot of, our audience who will be seeing this are trying to figure out their next career move. So it would be great to hear how you started it all.
So I think for me, this was sort of in short sentence coming back home. So I grew up in an entrepreneurial family, and all through my life, I think since I can remember, I might have been 8. I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur and I wanted to work with entrepreneurs. At that age, both my parents were starting their businesses, and I used to spend a lot of time learning with them, seeing their process. And that really inspired me to do something similar. And as I sort of moved along my career, I got exposed to different subjects, different things. But what really stuck with me was my experience at the finance and investment clubs in university. That's where I realized that I have deep interest in pursuing a career in finance and investments. So like any other ambitious graduate, I went moved to investment banking, worked with Merrill Lynch after graduation for a couple years. But that whole need to understand a business model better, so pushed me more towards buy side roles rather than sell side. So slowly sort of moved more towards private equity and spent the next few years working across different products within private equity, different sectors. And from that, two things that became very evident is one, I loved to work with entrepreneurs and love that whole building phase. And then the second thing was that I also like to really look at a business from a bird's eye view and try to understand what could go right and what could go wrong. So when I moved back to India, I started speaking with entrepreneurs to understand where I could add value and how I could utilize my experience to make this a better place for entrepreneurs as well as for investors. And what really stood out was that, while a lot has happened in the Indian ecosystem in the last 10 years, when the whole startup ecosystem didn't exist or startup term wasn't necessarily used, to a very vibrant community with different kind of investors and startups now. One thing that still was a huge white space was the early stage funding. Only 8% of the startups get funded today. And a large portion of those startups also don't make it through Series A. And that's because a lot of the startups that don't have the right kind of connects early on spend anywhere between 3 to 6 months raising funds. In fact, with a very short time frame that they have to be able to launch into the market, they often spend a large portion of that only in fundraising and figuring out how to get capital. And as we grow the entire ecosystem, I don't think that that would be sustainable, because founders would need to raise capital quickly at the early stage and actually focus on the crux, which is building the product, growth, and scaling. So with that, we knew that we wanted to create something that would be a more seamless fundraising experience for founders. It would be quick. It would be something that will actually help give them that capital that would otherwise take them 3 to 6 months, and help them get back to what was really important. So that was the whole sort of thought process behind starting Eximius. But of course, it also gave me an opportunity to sort of bring both my passions together. One was working with entrepreneurs, but the other one was investing alongside as well.
Absolutely. And you're someone who has such an objective mindset to things. So when you told me that you're starting this and you're doing this, like I was just so happy and thrilled for you. Especially, as a woman in this area, you're sort of, really pushing your boundaries. And it would be amazing if you could talk about some of the investments that you're making within the space through Eximius, and what are some of the sectors that particularly excite you and in the Indian ecosystem.
Mhm. So, we've made about 10 investments in the last year, and they were from a wide range of sectors. And we were like, what we were most focused on at that time was, is this sector something that would be disrupted by COVID or accelerated in a positive way by COVID and the behavioral changes that come along with it? And is it something that we feel sort of passionate about given what we have done in the past? So these were certain things that we were focusing on for the last 10 investments that we did. Going forward, a large number of investments that we would like to do would be, from the Edtech segment, from the fintech segment, as well as gaming. And I'll talk a little bit more about Edtech in particular. I think we feel very passionate about how Edtech can make a huge impact on India as an economy. So we know that India has about 200 million plus kids, in the range of anywhere between 8 to 20 and in the school going age. However, a large portion of them, especially in tier 2, tier 3 cities, don't have the right kind of education. And these are the kids who are going to be entering the workforce over the next decade. And it is very important for us to educate them, and not just educate them, but educate them in the right way. And while the government has been doing their part, it is also something that the private companies and private players should take part in. And that's where Edtech comes in. Edtech has really tried to improve access and bridge that digital gap. While a little bit has been done in the last 4 to 5 years, there's still a lot more that can be done. So I'm very keen on that sector and trying to focus on that. Trying to really understand what are the real use cases that can be solved. Similarly, we also have a large, I wouldn't call unbanked, but underbanked population that doesn't have the right kind of savings product. They don't know how to plan for the future well, how to plan for their kids. And we require products and companies that can educate them and provide them with the right kind of materials to actually and products to actually be able to plan for their future. So we're also looking at several fintech companies that are able to cater to this, again, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 underbanked population. These are the two main sectors, but of course, we're very excited to speak with any entrepreneur who comes up with a real use case in a new sector and can help us understand that. We're very open to that, and we continue to have conversations.
Absolutely. And I definitely know that there's been a lot of, discussion and excitement about the edtech space, and a lot of funding has gone there. It'll be exciting to see in the next few years how that actually pans out. But as you are making your investments, what are some of the things that you are looking out for in these smaller, smaller companies that are sort of growing rapidly?
Again, so I have to tell you a little bit about the stage that we come in at. See, usually when Eximius would take a bet would be when a company has MVP, which is minimum viable product ready, might or might not have a few early customers, but in no way they have yet received a complete market validation. There are two things that are constant, that would not change. The first one is the founding team, and then the second one is the problem statement that they're solving for. And not just the problem statement, but the market that problem statement relates to. So we definitely try to look for these two. Like for us, getting the right team market fit is most important. Product can evolve, and if the team is right, they can find a product that works for the market, and eventually get to the product market fit. These two things, the first two things, team and market, cannot change. So everybody that we speak with, we try to see what is the problem statement that they're solving for. What market is this problem statement relevant for? And then how well positioned is the team to be able to solve for this problem statement?
Yeah, definitely. Because this problem statement, I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs that I have spoken to, usually they come to me and they tell me, okay, I want to start a company and then let's figure out a problem. They don't usually start with, okay, this is the problem and this is how I'm going to solve it. So definitely they need to start thinking backwards rather than in that mindset. You also spoke to me about DotReview and how important it is to sort of understand the investors that you're working with as a startup and a founder. So could you talk to us a little bit about how that idea came to fruition and sort of, where you are with that?
I think DotReview is something that is very close to my heart. This problem actually came about when we were researching for Eximius on how to build Eximius. What I realized is that with every conversation that I had, there was a huge disconnect in how founders looked at investors and how investors wanted to portray themselves to founders. The investors that we spoke with, usually wanted to portray themselves as founder friendly, accessible, somebody who were adding a lot of value to founders. And to a large extent, I would say that, while not all of them, about 60 to 70% were actually doing what they were also saying. However, for founders, that message was not being communicated because there weren't these stories told. A lot of times, if you're not well connected founder, you might not be able to pick up the phone and ask the portfolio founders, how is it working with these guys? And you rely on either hearsay or PR. And that's not the right kind of information that would give you in peace that yes, the information that you have is true and you can rely upon it. So there was definitely that huge disconnect, and we knew that the only way to solve for it is to have a 360-degree feedback system where of course founders could get true and authentic reviews from peers and from industry stalwarts that have experienced it, as well as investors could actually utilize this to showcase the stories, the positive stories of how they are making a difference in the ecosystem. uh, and so we are in our beta launch phase. We'll be launching very soon, and we'd love to get your views and any of your viewers views as well. We're very open to feedback and seeing how we can really add value to the founders. So if you have anything, do shoot it back to me.
Of course, I'm excited for that. You're starting your own company, you have a VC fund. Like, where do you draw your strengths from, really? Because it's a lot to be managing as a single person.
It's a journey. There are definitely days that you feel really good about everything that's happening and how things are going, but there are also other days where it's very overwhelming with several things, especially at this stage, because we're still building our team. Once you have a team ready, you can sort of delegate and move on. But as we are building both side by side, it could get a little difficult at times. For me, what has really helped is having my inner circle around me. So I always make sure that I rely on my family and friends. So I have them, I share all the experiences with them, and to the extent that they're able to understand, sort of get some feedback, because that helps me be myself and really speak my mind. But I also have a set of mentors, and I constantly keep adding more mentors depending on the kind of experiences that I'm having. And these are subject matter experts that have lived through it, gone through it, and can really not just sort of provide you comfort, but can also add certain thought processes that you might not be aware of or looking at. I also sort of make sure that I'm constantly keeping in touch with my friends and sort of unwinding along with them. That helps me get away from all the craziness. These are definitely the three areas.
Yeah, I definitely think that family and friends and mentors are a good balance, especially mentors. I feel like personally in my life, I've had specific mentors through different parts of my journey, and they've really helped me understand because they've been through those situations as well. Definitely keep them close for all of those watching this video. And, coming back to, how are you constantly innovating, challenging yourself and sort of staying abreast with things? Because that's something that, as you're working through the minutia of like your day-to-day work, sometimes you sort of lose that perspective. So how are you managing that?
For me, I think change has been something that I have always sort of pushed myself towards. One thing that I deeply believe is that the only thing that stays constant in your life is change. We have to constantly evolve with the world around us. Because by the time we die, the world will be very different. The world is very different from when we were born. And every few years you'll see new technology, new products, new set of mindset coming about. And it is important to constantly speak with people, read, listen to the right kind of materials to be able to gather the right insights to keep up with the changing world. While sometimes it's difficult when you are around a lot of work and you're overwhelmed with it, but I try to make sure that I get some time for myself to be able to do that. I try to make sure that I have certain things that I'm always reading, speaking with people to discuss new ideas, to be able to keep up with that.
Absolutely. I think that's so important to be able to take that me time, to be able to like get perspective on what you're doing and think a little bit more strategically rather than very tactically on a short-term basis. My last question really for viewers is, looking back at your career now that spanned over a decade already, what do you think, looking back, you could have done a little bit differently or could have done a little bit better so that the younger audience knows and can sort of have those insights before?
That's a very interesting question. Really makes me think now that what could I have done differently? I would say that, one thing that I could have definitely done a little different was take a few more risks in life. And I am in no way a risk averse person. And I have lived across multiple countries, continents, taken up new roles in new, not just new organizations, but completely new fields, and tried to sort of learn and keep up with that. Sometimes I feel like going back, I know something that I have learned from you, where you have a plan, but it's important to sort of jump in, get a little uncomfortable, and then the kind of growth that you see is tremendous. So do a little bit more of that. I think that would have definitely helped me a lot more. If I had a chance, I would sort of go back and take a lot more risk than I did.
Absolutely. And to all the viewers out there, Pearl is basically alluding to when I met her about 6 or 7 years ago when I moved to New York pretty much with 2 suitcases and a dream. So
And look at you where you are today. So you've made a life for yourself in New York. And for viewers, like, definitely do take more risk in life, because every time you get comfortable means that your learning curve has flattened, and you have to constantly make sure that you're not getting comfortable.
Absolutely. Change is the inevitable. But thank you so much, Pearl, for your time. And I will include the link to Pearl's bio in the description below. So please like her blogs and follow her. She has a lot of insights to share, and it's going to be pretty exciting the next few weeks as your DotReview launches and also the kinds of investments you start to make. So definitely reach out to her if you have a company and you're looking to get investments or you're just looking to learn more. Thank you so much for your time, Pearl. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Saloni. It was a pleasure speaking with you.